What should have been a routine matchup between the Indiana Fever and the Seattle Storm turned into one of the most emotional and explosive nights in WNBA history. A game that had all the ingredients of drama, competition, and redemption would become the proving ground for Aliyah Boston, Lexie Hull, and Kelsey Mitchell, a trio that showed the entire league what it means to have each other's backs. The moment the team stepped onto the hardwood, you could feel it. This wasn't just about basketball. It was about pride, respect, and justice for one of the league's most talked about rookies, Caitlin Clark. The stage was set. What followed was nothing short of legendary.
And now you see Phoebish starting off on Caitlin Clark. New York is pretty coy about how they would defend her. Boston, the roll, the catch, and puts it in for two.
Caitlin Clark, the target of bullies. Caitlin Clark has quickly become the face of a new WNBA era. Her confidence, long-range shooting, and floor vision have drawn comparisons to Steph Curry and Diana Taurasi. But her rise hasn't come without resistance. Opposing teams have increasingly targeted Clark with hard fouls, physical plays, and mental warfare. From flagrant elbows to under-the-radar shoves, it's become clear the league's veterans don't intend to give her an easy ride. And that includes the Seattle Storm. In their last meeting, Seattle made headlines, not for their style of play, but for their harsh treatment of Clark. From uncalled hacks to visible trash talk, the message was unmistakable. They wanted to rattle the rookie phenom. But this time around, the Fever were ready.
When Clark and Boston play through the middle.
Sabrina, short on the jumper.
Well, you want to make Sabrina dribble into her shots if possible.
Mitchell gets by.
Pre-game vibes, locked in and fired up. Inside the Fever's locker room, the atmosphere was quiet, serious. Coach Stephanie White kept her words simple but impactful. Tonight, we protect each other. No long speeches, no yelling, just a clear message of unity. Aliyah Boston laced up her sneakers with a steel gaze. Lexie Hull was reviewing defensive assignments one last time. Kelsey Mitchell tapped Caitlin's shoulder and whispered, "We got you." And that was it. Game on.
Behind the secondary and puts it in. A torrid start.
As soon as Clark gets the basketball, if you run hard and run a... New York is doing a really good job of getting into the vision of Caitlin Clark early.
Clark steps on the gas, goes right by Stewart, and picks up the...
First quarter, fire meets focus. From the opening tip-off, you could see the shift. The Fever weren't just playing, they were making a statement. Aliyah Boston owned the paint. She dominated the boards, pushed defenders under the basket, and showed no fear. On the first offensive possession, she powered through two Storm defenders to score with a strong finish, drawing an and one. No chest pounding, just a nod. Message received. Lexie Hull hounded her matchup full court, no space, no breathing room. She forced a turnover early, diving to the floor and slapping the ball to Caitlin, who connected with Kelsey Mitchell for a three-pointer in transition. And Kelsey, ice cold. She dropped back-to-back jumpers in Gabby Williams's face, then stared her down on the way back. This wasn't trash talk. It was confidence, earned and displayed.
When you shadow her up the floor, you can't give her a straight...
When you have players like Ionescu and Caitlin Clark, the way that you defend them, your team slants, Boston galloping to the cup. The connection works again.
Watch Kelsey,
Second quarter, Clark in the crosshairs. Again, Seattle ramped up their physical play. On one possession, Clark was hit on a screen that looked more like a football block than a basketball play. She winced, staggered, but got back up and kept playing. The crowd wasn't having it. Boos echoed through the arena, but this time, something changed. Aliyah Boston made sure it didn't go unnoticed. On the very next play, she set a massive screen on the Storm's guard, leveling the field, literally. She picked up a foul, but the crowd went wild. A clear sign. If you hit our teammate, expect it back.
Caitlin, do just a good job of that little dribble through. Did a good job communicating their switches right there.
Cloud, the drive, the ditch, blocked by Boston. And then a collision on the floor, and they're just going to rule this out of bounds as Phoebish was trying to chase after it. Hull sent to the deck. The rebound, and she pushes the pace.
Halftime, the turning point with Indiana leading by just 6 points at the break. The locker room was intense. Coach White pointed to a whiteboard with one word written on it: respect. Aliyah stood up and said, "No more. We shut them down. Every single one of them." Lexie chimed in, "Let's make the statement loud enough so nobody ever tries this again." Kelsey Mitchell was already locked in, shooting imaginary jumpers, visualizing the second half. Caitlin, with a bruised shoulder and ice pack on her wrist, nodded and said, "Let's finish it."
Jones loses it behind the back. It's a 2-on-2 break. Hull trying to attack Cloud, spinning. Hull elevates and puts it down.
Their personnel. They went through a really detailed defensive scout yesterday.
Clark, a tough.
Third quarter, total takeover. Indiana came out swinging in the third. Aliyah Boston unleashed a beast mode performance. She grabbed 7 rebounds, blocked 3 shots, and hit a mid-range jumper that left her defender shaking her head. When she slammed home a putback, the entire bench stood up in unison. Lexie Hull intercepted a lazy pass and sprinted down the court for a fast break layup. But instead of going up herself, she dished to Caitlin for a clean shot, and the crowd roared louder than ever. That's when you knew this wasn't about stats. It was about standing up together. Kelsey Mitchell continued her assault. Pull-up threes, step-backs, floaters. Nothing could stop her. At one point, Seattle switched 3 different defenders on her within 5 minutes, and she scored on all of them. Her final dagger came at the buzzer, a long 3 that hit nothing but net. Indiana was up 18.
Bucket and another and one opportunity as she goes window shopping.
Athletic, high IQ, and right here, when you get the defender on your hips.
Catch and finish, and to your point, those right-handed layups.
I mean, they have 9 baskets, and I have a...
Fourth quarter, statement. Complete Seattle looked exhausted. Their strategy had backfired. The physicality, the targeting. It only united the Fever more. Caitlin Clark, despite being battered, started playing looser. She hit a logo 3, smiled, and gave a subtle shrug to the crowd. The building shook with energy. Aliyah Boston continued punishing the Storm's interior. On one critical possession, she boxed out 2 defenders and secured a tough rebound, giving the Fever a second chance opportunity that Lexie capitalized on with a clean jumper. By the time the final buzzer sounded, the scoreboard told the story. Indiana Fever 94, Seattle Storm 71. Post-game, the mic drop. The press room was full of questions, but the answers were clear. Aliyah Boston, this is what real teams do. We protect our own. Lexie Hull, we're not here to fight. We're here to win. But we're not letting anyone push us around. Kelsey Mitchell, they woke something up in us tonight, and now we're wide awake. And Caitlin Clark? She smiled and said, "That's what family looks like. They had my back, and now I've got theirs."
Working the baseline, tough 3, over the defender, buries it.
And just creating and getting a bucket is...
Legacy in the making. Aliyah Boston's leadership now feels generational. Lexie Hull's hustle is no longer underrated. It's undeniable. Kelsey Mitchell's clutch gene is officially certified. And Caitlin Clark? She's part of something bigger than herself. This is the kind of game that fans will talk about for years. The game where the Fever didn't just win, they arrived. From a storyline of bullying and tension to one of redemption and dominance, this night became something special. The Fever didn't just stand tall, they stood together. And in this league, that's how dynasties begin.
Kelsey Mitchell.
The most recent. Clark over the top, Boston.
The pass is exactly on the target hand.
The setup, a rematch with history. Heading into this rematch, the air was electric. Fans packed the arena, many holding up signs like "Stand with Caitlin" and "No more cheap shots." Social media was buzzing, with analysts speculating whether Indiana would retaliate. Inside the locker room, a different mood. Calm, focused. Aliyah Boston, the team's anchor, had one thing in mind: dominate the paint. Lexie Hull, the defensive spark plug, reviewed tape for hours, preparing for every Seattle move. And Kelsey Mitchell? She was ready to let her jumper do the talking.
Now Caitlin's going to wait for Aliyah Boston here.
Goes over the top, Boston, the catch fading away, goes off the glass.
Really nice job of loading to the strong side. and allowing Aliyah